It's been a bumper few years for detective games, and this month contains the release of 3 wonderful new additions. So to celebrate, myself and nocaps decided to collect a bunch of our favorite detective games ever into one video. Some old, some new-ish, and a few fresh out of the oven. So grab yourself a pen and notepad, you're gonna want to jot some of these down.
First, let us explore the ocean's darkest depths aboard the Tortuga submarine in The Mermaid Mask. It just released on PS5, Switch, and PC, which is where I played it, as the publishers very kindly sent me a review code. But I did already have this one on my wishlist ever since it was first announced because I'm a big fan of the previous game in the series, Tangle Tower. You don't have to play one before the other, but if you like one, you definitely will like the other. Like any good detective story, The Mermaid Mask takes place right after a murder aboard this rickety old submarine. You follow along with the infamous crime-solving duo, Detective Grimoire and Sally Spears, as they interview suspects and hunt for clues. The game is fully voiced and has wonderful performances across the board, and this time around there are quite a few more puzzles than in the previous entry. This is always a nice touch in these kinds of games because it helps to switch up the gameplay. What at first seems like a pretty ragtag crew of people gathered into this slightly claustrophobic vessel will eventually reveal itself to be a much more interesting and intertwined mystery, but of course no spoilers here. As you get to know the cast and discover their secrets, you'll start piecing together the clues in some very satisfying ways, and really, you can't go wrong here if you want a nice mystery game. I ended up playing most of this one on the Steam Deck, as I did with Tangle Tower, because it just feels like a nice cozy game to curl up with on the couch. But let's just forget about this behemoth of a handheld for a moment and switch over to something a bit more pocket-sized. Coming to you in the glorious resolution of 256 by 192 pixels, completely and comically dwarfed by the deck, is my trusty Coral Pink DS Lite. I think I got this for Christmas in either 2006 or 2007, and it was my first ever gaming console. But what I did not have until very recently is Professor Layton and the Curious Village. Instead, I got Brain Age as a kid, which must have been in every bargain bin across the country because there's a stack of about 20 of these cartridges at the game store, but instead I chose to pick up Professor Layton. Anyway, this game leans a lot more on the puzzles than Mermaid Mask does, and a little bit less on the murder mystery, but the atmosphere of this weird town and the bizarre characters living in it is unbeatable. The puzzles come in the form of 120 brain teasers presented to you by either talking to the characters or from just tapping around on the screen on certain objects. A lot of these are pretty random and not really connected to the story at all, but I do love the variety here, from visual puzzles to mazes to math problems. This is the perfect coffee break game. I believe that this is the most simple Layton game in the series since it is the first one, and I'm super looking forward to picking up the others, and hopefully this year also playing the upcoming Professor Layton in the new world of Steam, which is supposedly releasing soon, and it'll be on PC. Very exciting indeed.
Released on July 14th of this year, The Incident at Galley House is one of my favorite games of 2026 so far. You play as some sort of supernatural detective using a mysterious machine to jump into scenes from the past in a house where quite a lot of people died. You do this by deciphering clues in each scene to figure out which rooms certain people were in at certain times. Once you have those 3 pieces of information, you plug it into the machine and voila! You are now eavesdropping from conversations in the past. The game allows you total freedom to take guesses, to brute force solutions, and even has a tip system which does a great job of nudging you in the right direction when you get stuck. Like a good book, I could not put this down and completed it in 2 evenings with a total playtime of around 9 hours. While I'm talking about wonderful murder mysteries in old houses, I have to once again mention the Seance of Blake Manor. I talked it up a bunch last year here on NoClip2 and on our podcast, but if you still haven't gotten around to playing maybe 2025's best video game, this is your reminder. It's a first-person detective game with over a dozen interesting characters, a remarkable time mechanic that drives the moment-to-moment tension, the story is superb, and it looks and sounds fantastic. And as an Irish person, I found it deeply moving, with its narrative expertly weaving through thousands of years of Irish history, myth, and legend. Many of the games in this genre, including two I've already mentioned, are directly downstream from a game that was so impactful it feels almost redundant to mention it at this point. But Return of the Obra Dinn is an all-time detective game classic. And it's been out so long that many of you who've played it have probably forgotten the solutions and much of the story by now. So perhaps it's the perfect time to jump on board once again. In Obra Dinn, you play as a murder investigator with a magical pocket watch who is able to transport themselves into the moment of somebody's death. Your mission? To uncover what happens aboard this vessel, who died, where, and how. Its hyper-dithered graphics and insanely well-produced audio still impresses in 2026. And last one for me, if we're doing a detective video, I need to mention the Golden Idol series. Jesse got me into these last year when I finally got around to playing The Rise of the Golden Idol, and then eventually went back and played the original game in this series, The Case of the Golden Idol. I prefer the sequel myself, its setting and graphics just appeal to me more, but both of them follow the same wonderful format. You're given a scene, and through the process of investigation, you collect clues in the form of words that can be placed into a Mad Lib-style sentence to uncover the truth behind each scene. The puzzles have fantastic variety and are often hilarious, dark, and ominous. And while many of these scenes are totally disconnected from each other, the umbrella story that they all fit into is remarkably well told.
Looking further into the DS library, I found that this is actually a great system for detective/visual novel type games, and while I haven't tried any others yet, including Ghost Trick Phantom Detective, I have been playing the Steam remake, and I can't recommend it enough. First off, the whole thing is so stylish, the music is great too, it really gets you into the drama and helps you feel how high the stakes are because you have one night to stop your own murder. To do that, you'll need to go back in time, haunt a bunch of inanimate objects, and change your own fate. I can definitely see how this would be a bit of a different experience on DS, since you're essentially just clicking on a bunch of things throughout each screen with the stylus, but I think it still plays well on controller, and the updated graphics look very nice too. The team that made Ghost Trick at Capcom was led by the director of Ace Attorney, Shu Takumi, so you can bet there's a bunch of drama, twists, and turns in the story, and the whole rewind time, use your ghost to haunt objects, and then perform tricks with them does make for a very satisfying loop. Each level kind of plays out like one giant Rube Goldberg machine, with you opening doors, rolling tires, moving cranes, and finding lots of other ways to mess with the bad guys. I will definitely be exploring more of the DS library in the future, but for now we must return to the PC-only side of things for our last game, Desktop Explorer. As you may have imagined, given the title, this is one of those old-school PC interface type games, and would probably confuse the hell out of someone who's never used a computer before. You've inherited your uncle's old PC and find a program on it called Desktop Explorer, which contains basically a big old mystery scavenger hunt across pictures, files, metadata, and all sorts of other computer tools. Out of all the games in this video, this one makes you feel the most like a detective, both because the puzzles challenge you to use every resource at your disposal, and because there's no real mascot or character that you're playing as. The interface immerses you into this mysterious world and pretty quickly lets you loose into all of its files and programs. Of course, you do have a friendly helper in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen if you need a hint, but I'd encourage you to give it your all, renaming files, copying and pasting, and compressing documents to unravel the mystery and discover what your uncle has hidden for you. At one point I left the game running and came back to this maze screensaver, which really freaked me out at first, until I realized that you could choose from a bunch of classics, this one being my favorite. Anyway, I hope you all found this investigation into these mysterious games interesting. Let me know what other DS games, or just detective games in general, I should play, and I'll see you in the next one.